Cooked or be cooked, this is the Paper 2 AQA A-Level 2024 preview. The contents for today. This is what we're going to go through. Usual structure of Paper 2, time management, game management, 9 markers, because we're going to get a lot of those, and as well, 16 markers, we're going to see a lot of those. Things to think about there. There's going to be filler questions. I want to talk about that later on. And then global trends you might want to be aware of, be on the pulse for, and then colder topics to think about, and have that at the end of the video. Let's get into number 1, usual structure of Paper 2. So usual structure of Paper 2 is as follows. 3 compulsory data response, context, case study questions. Each of them is worth 33 marks. It could be 34, it could be 32, it could be 31, it could be 35, but they're going to come out to about 33. And for each of those, it's likely they'll have 3 or 4 parts, and they're pretty much always going to end with a 9 and then a 16 marker. So I think it's particularly important here to talk about the difference between the 3 sections. So section A is likely to be 4 or 5 appendices. They might have tables, graphs, line graphs, bar charts, and so forth in them. Make sure you read every axis. Make sure you read the title so you know exactly what the information is trying to show you, and you will need to use them. For sure, you will need to use them. They're not to be ignored. Often 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 of these 4 to 5 appendices will have a key functional area data in the tables. And what I mean is operations, HR, marketing and finance. Therefore, a good piece of revision, a good spend of time, good ROI would be here. Marketing perspective, thinking about your sales volume, thinking about your market share, thinking about your market growth. Do you know what they are? Do you know what they mean? Do you know how to calculate them? The last two, the latter two, well, they would set up delightfully for a Boston Matrix question. And then perhaps there could be confidence intervals there, particularly cold, or extrapolation or correlation. Something there might fit a marketing type case study. Also, you'll want to look at HRM perspective. Labour productivity for sure, labour cost per unit, employee cost as a percentage of turnover, labour turnover, or retention. All of them would set up well for a formula question. If you're unsure of any of them, they've been covered there. Section B and C usually got a case study, and then that's followed at the end of it with a table with some sort of data in it. At least one of those, maybe both, is likely to start with a cheeky calculation question. Maybe one of the ones talked about before, but maybe you've got some sort of private limited company turning into a public limited company, or just a public limited company, and you've got to calculate for 2 marks the market cap. Or maybe they're doing some sort of project and you need to calculate the ROI or the payback or the ARR. Again, for a cheeky 2, a cheeky 3. So that's the usual structure of Paper 2. 3 sections, slightly different though between Section A and the other 2. Time management. So as I said before, 3 sections, each worth 33-ish marks. You're thinking roughly 40 minutes for each section here. Game management. We'll answer the paper sequentially, I think. That seems the most sensible, the most pragmatic way to go about this. And then you're thinking, these are your checkpoints. Checkpoint 1, in terms of your game management, I've finished Section A. Is it 40 minutes on the clock? You cite that clock. Where's that clock? You manage your time. You're on that 16 marker. You're just watching 40 minutes. And then you move on to Section B. And then the end of Section B, towards the 16 marker on that will close out Section B. You're just checking the time. Is it 1 hour, 20 minutes? If it is, good. And then the final checkpoint, checkpoint 3, always good to know this, is when is it 5 minutes before the end of the exam? Because you'll know you'll probably want to be on the conclusion for that final 16 marker there. Let's move on to, firstly, the 9 markers. So 9 markers in this paper. As discussed, you're probably going to have 3 in this paper. It could be analyse how, analyse why, analyse the impact. And again, watching out for those standard traps. So it could be analyse how, XXX, that's like a concept, helped, whatever the business is in the context, maintain its ZZZ. So make sure you're just catching that last term at the end of the 9 marker and ensure you're writing your analysis through that point. Maybe it's profitability, maybe it's liquidity, maybe it's competitiveness, they're classics. but you're just watching that you're driving your analysis, your chains of analysis through ZZZ. Moving on to 16 markers. So 16 markers in this paper. You're probably going to have 3 again, of course, because of each of the sections. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tactical. So it's likely that 2 of them will have the all businesses or any businesses structure. An example of that. To what extent should all businesses use automation to improve labour productivity? Of course, some should, but not all. Many businesses, yes, it would improve their labour productivity, but not all. So filler questions is the next thing to think about. Each section has a 9 and a 16 marker, that adds to 25. So often you're going to have filler questions to get the paper to add to 100 here. And the filler questions are likely to be in this format. Calculation questions, as we talked about. Definitions have been there in the past. There's history there. Explain questions for 4 markers. You might just get 1 of these. Or analyse questions for 6 marks. Now, filler questions, if they go the definitions route, then you'll probably want to make sure you're on top of these types of definitions. So mission statements, maybe the relationship between mission statements and corporate objectives, what a public sector organisation is, what added value is. So added value is sales revenue minus cost of bought in goods and services. What producing to order is in operation, debt factoring, how does it work, redeployment as part of the human resource flow, what economies of scope is, the 3 types of economies of scale in purchasing, managerial and technical, maybe big data, data mining, retained profit, brand loyalty, benchmarking, the types of integration, or just one of the bits of Porter's 5 forces. So they're filler questions in terms of definitions. Filler questions could come another way. They could come in terms of 4 markers, so that's explain why, likely. The way to answer these is 1 paragraph in context. Maybe, you don't have to, but maybe you could define the term. I think that's always good to set the scene to the examiner so they know what you're talking about. And then just answer the question and explain why in a few chains. Just answer the question in context. Now, I think the most likely filler question that will appear is the 6 markers, analyse type questions. Think of them as like mini 9 markers. So that's 1 strong, detailed paragraph that is in context. Again, you could go for the optional route of define the term, set the scene to the examiner, make it easy for them to understand that you understand the topic. Answer the question, develop your analysis, and then link that analysis to the case study. You have to do that. So really you're just thinking good knowledge, good understanding, good application to the context, and that will get you top levels. So the next thing to think about is global trends, number 7. So thinking about past papers that have come up. Historically, 3 sections are there. 2 have got the all businesses going on for the 16 marker. 2 are real or made up businesses or copycat businesses. And 1 has had a real world vibe. 2021, banking change and all the challenger banks. And that was kind of happening a couple of years before. 2022, disrupted supply chains. And that was a 2021, post-COVID 2020 thing. Last year, remote working. That was a 2021, 2020 type thing with working from home. So then thinking what maybe has happened in the last couple of years that maybe could be turned to a case study. We don't know if it will be, but I think it's worth a bit of your time just to cover this area. And I think that is artificial intelligence and perhaps linking that to capital investment. Maybe there's a case study along the vibe of the business has introduced AI, they've become more capital intensive, made them more efficient. Maybe you could talk about labour cost per unit. Obviously, if you're becoming more capital intensive, it might change your employee costs as a percentage of turnover. It might impact your labour turnover. It might impact your labour productivity. People are getting sacked. People are being made redundant as a consequence of the business switching from labour intensive to capital intensive. Now you need to bring out the work councils, the trade unions. There's resistance. You bring out Cotter. Maybe. You could see it. I'd just spend a little bit of time covering that angle. Colder topics. Well, colder topics, innovation. You're thinking K-Bird, Kaizen, benchmarking, entrepreneurship, research and development in terms of how you become more innovative. Internationalization, you're thinking deal, so your direct investment, your exporting, your alliances, and your licensing. Maybe big data, maybe data mining, all of that Unit 9, right? Marketing mix for industrial goods, hanging on to it. Pricing strategies, we've not seen price skimming, we've not seen price penetration, so let's just watch out for that, be on top of that. And then Boston Matrix, I'll talk about that at the end and give you some delicious angles for that type of question. Economies of scale, purchasing, technical, managerial, know your economies of scale. It's an important concept. You've got to be on top of it. You've got to know it clinically. You've got to know each one in depth and know how to explain it step by step by step by step, especially if you're linking to a growing business, efficiency, cost per unit, and so forth. Herzberg Taylor, financial methods of motivation, CSR, Carroll, stakeholder, shareholder principles, called economies of scale. Oh yeah, it's there again. Already had that. That happened last time. Carry on with those delicious angles for Boston Matrix questions. Maybe it could be there. So here's 3 angles that we've not seen. So should businesses always invest additional, more resources into products classified as question marks in the Boston Matrix? Another way to go about it, should businesses prioritize maximizing profits from products classified as cash cows in the Boston Matrix? Another one, should businesses allocate more resources to support the growth of products classified as stars in the Boston Matrix? All of them 16 markers. Cover that. Just be on top of that as part of your revision. Of course, revise absolutely everything. Anything can come up, but it's good sometimes just make sure you've checked a couple of those topics that, might have a chance of coming up. Other than that, that is the paper 2 sesh done. I'll see you at the next sesh.